Susie, you screened your awesome film, Darla in Space, at Slamdance, and it's also playing at the San Francisco Independent Film Festival, right, Susie, on February 11th?
Yeah, February
Yeah,
11th at 2 p.m.
yeah, very exciting. Um, yeah, I just love to hear about your Slamdance experience, Susie, because obviously
Mm.
they're such an amazing festival that really champions, that independent filmmaker spirit. So if you can just tell us maybe a little bit about your film, Susie, and then yeah, just maybe some memorable moments during your Slamdance experience as well. That would be awesome.
Sure.
Yeah,
Um, well, Darla in Space is about a woman named Darla who meets up with a sentient kombucha SCOBY called Mother, and using Mother's ability to give mind-blowing or mind-bending, as one reviewer put it, and I like
nice.
that, mind-bending orgasms. They tried to pay off Darla's horribly huge tax debt, which you find out about in the kind of like the first few minutes of the movie. Um, Slamdance was great. It is very intense. It's different from all of the other film festivals that Darla's been to, in that it's an all day affair, and because of that, it ends up feeling a little bit like a summer camp for filmmakers, where you kind of just all show up on any given day morning. Um, they have breakfast set out for you, also different from other film festivals. And you kind of naturally have to network, which is great for just card carrying introverts like me. I don't know what to do at parties and networking. And I'm just like, even in like with the best of intentions, I'm just horrible. But if you just sort of hit the ground running and you're there with them, with everybody else kind of like shuffling around, not looking like they know what to do or where to go, but we are all having breakfast and talking about movies, it kind of naturally lends itself to that. And I appreciated that a lot. They're all there are also tons of events and parties and things like that you can, and you're encouraged to RSVP for. But really, and you get the sense even before you show up, is that you're here for movies. You're here also like primarily for your own, but also to watch everybody else's. Because you forget that when you're just having to champion your own movie so hard. But then you kind of like get there and you realize, like, oh shit, I'm interested in all of this actually. And they foster that even leading up to it by having scheduled Zoom meetings of like the bigger to like the more narrow category. So like they have one that's just for the general, like all of the filmmakers that are presented. If you can show up, show up. And then it gets into like we were in the narrative features. So we only met with those people a couple times on Zoom. And then from what I understand, the other categories, like they have Unstoppable and all of the various shorts also have their own Zoom categories, and they get to network just even leading up to it. And then once you get there, you kind of don't have a chance to really think a whole lot because you want to make sure you watch as many movies as possible. So breakfast, and then it's like, okay, 10 a.m., you're in your first, movie,
Mm.
usually a narrative feature. And then it's like that, another one in the afternoon and another one in the evening, and then you're off to like whatever event that you might want to try to make in the evening, and then it's you just cycle through your days like that, and it's a good 7 days of that, 7, 8 days. It was great. Met up with lots of people that we, even though we tried to in other festivals, um, and again, with the best of intentions, you're taking all kinds of names and social media handles, and you just kind of like don't keep up. But just having all of that exposure to your fellow filmmakers in and out of your categories, you just end up talking to them more. And because of that, you carry that after the festival. And so we're just continuing to text and share social media stuff, and it's still vibrant. the one thing that like you kind of always wish that would be different no matter what festival you're going to is that you leave with some kind of big glistening deal, a distributor saying like, here's a bunch of money, and not only that, we also want to hear more about what you're doing and give you money for that next project. Or even like I'm from a management or an agency company or organization, and we want to sign you or whatever it is. And I think that happens like in maybe a few of the cases, even in Slamdance, but to go in expecting that, you will have your hopes dashed, I think, just statistically. I think I know of like one or two that actually got deals signed and were able to move them into like the distribution conversation. But so far, not a whole lot. Yeah. And as well as like any questions, please like interrupt me at any time.
Yeah, I mean, I've never been to a festival that prestigious and well organized. So yeah, that was great to hear, just to hear about your experience, Susie. And I'm great that it is like this sort of like this summer camp type of atmosphere where like filmmakers are
Yeah.
really able to connect with each other. And yeah, because ultimately like the filmmakers and the actors and crew, and they're the ones that are making these films, right? They're the most important part of this whole thing. So it's great that you got to connect with everyone and meet everyone. That's awesome.
Yeah. The artistic side being very much at the forefront of all this. You know, you talk a lot about your own movie, but each other's, and that's like the predominant
Mm,
conversation, as opposed to businessy things, which I'm very, very desperate for those conversations too. But you know,
yeah.
yeah.
So do you would you say you came out of it sort of like reinvigorated for the next thing? Which just being around all those creative people talking about what they've done and what they want to do, is that something that like, because you know you're in some ways the festival run can be sort of at least one of the ends for a film, and so you've lived with that film
Mm.
for so long that like did it kind of give you that next jolt into like starting to look towards the future, or you know what was the feeling predominantly coming out of that week?
Mm, I think when it was clear that we were not signing a distribution deal like what during Slamdance, um, we came out of it thinking, let's just sign with a company that's going to screw us the least, which is actually how we went into Slamdance too. I think for independent features, that's kind of the most sane and not even cynical way of thinking about this. You want to protect yourself, you want to protect your product. And some of these will have you signing away the rights for 30 years. That's a freaking long time. I'm not sure I'm into that. So we are invigorated for next steps post Darla as far as like other projects. As far as like next steps for Darla, it is now like let's give it the final push as far as cold contacting and emailing distribution companies and sales rep companies, and see what comes out of that. Because prior to Slamdance, we tried it and it was like super hit or miss. I'm sure there were like companies that did not even watch it and were just like sending us boilerplate deals that not interested necessarily, you know? Um, so we're gonna do that. And then probably I want to say like before we get into the spring, I kind of want to sign somewhere and get this thing distributed so that we're not there's going to be a that time of just diminishing returns. Like how far post Slamdance do you want to go? When we're still kind of like still the name is still being rotated in people's minds. Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, it's you might as well capitalize it, and just because ultimately you want more people to be able to see your film, right? That's what we all want. And
Yeah.
so, yeah,
Yeah. Um, as well as like kind of using it in this post Slamdance now phase of Darla, using it as much as possible as like a calling card for future projects. And I think landing with someplace reputable will also help that along and things like that. Yeah, that's where we're at.
Yeah, it's such a great film, Susie. Like I really hope that a lot of people are able to access and watch it. And Um, yeah, I mean that the business part of it is always obviously tricky. Is
Mm.
there anything in particular that you're really looking for in that? I know it's you mentioned like the company that's gonna screw you over the least, but um yeah, what exactly is there? Are there any like key things that you're looking for in a
Oh,
distribution
and
company? Yeah.
um, I guess name one because longevity, name, all that it is equivalent to being a reputable company. There are so many out there.
Mm,
If you have access to any pair of eyes that has any experience in this, use them. And we're using like our ones. We have like two or three that are out purely out for our own interests. And so we're just giving it like a good old read to make sure we're not signing away forever. Um,
you have a lawyer that's helping you?
yeah, that's the next step. Do not have one just yet. We currently are using Eric's CPA to handle all like the tax end things, and so he might have access to names. Um, but yeah, definitely like before we end up signing with one.
Yeah, that's
But as far as
important.
names, I don't know any, and there's so many, and they all have like pretty great websites, so you can't even gauge based on that. There are also like a lot of kind of musical chairs, kind of, I was the VP here, now I'm the VP here. I also have my own personal company that distributes, so it's like, wow. None of these things are like necessarily red flags either. So being in this place of like, I don't know, I want people who do know more to take over.
Yeah. Or maybe obviously seeing the films that they've distributed in the past, and if yeah,
Mhm.
it's obviously a good
Yeah,
yeah.
that's one way we're tackling it too, is just going through, well, one previous Slamdance kind of participants and winners, seeing where their distribution ended up, and then everything else that we just kind of like in the past like 5 years, where have they? And not only that, but where are the filmmakers represented as far as management agencies, even attorneys, all that kind of thing. And you're gonna find that like there's some overlap there.
Yeah.
So we're keeping a spreadsheet of that, which I mean, I'm happy to share with you guys if you want, like ever want that. But
Are you
yeah.
just using IMDb Pro to get that information, or?
We're relying a lot on IMDb Pro. Yeah,
Yeah, it's a great resource for everything, but
it really is. Yeah.
it definitely manages and stuff like that. But I think there's something cleaner about distribution companies, right? Although, sometimes there are these situations where you have like multiple distributors listed and it's a little bit hard to kind of track.
Mhm.
But um, I think that is a great strategy. It's like, what are similar vibe films that these people have championed and
Yes.
distributed? And it's like, who might like Darla, and just reach out to them. And I do think you're right to say, like, let's capitalize on the fact that I can email them and say, like, hey, we just played Slamdance, and
Mhm.
we're currently fielding uh, distribution deals, or whatever you would want to call it, and just say,
Yeah.
like, if you'd be interested, we'd like to talk to you based on the fact that you distributed XYZ.
Yeah, exactly. You might be interested in and all of that. That definitely like will get you a response probably quicker or at all, versus just, hey, here's my movie. I don't know anything about you either.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, they're people, right? So it's like you want to get an email that shows that this person is writing to you because they know something about you and they're not just sending the same email to like 1,000 people. I think, yeah, I mean, I think the important part is that you made the film, first of all, right? I kind of wanted to just step back one to
Mhm.
just ask, like, we all have these moments in life where we do things and we don't do things. And so it's like, what was the impetus? Like, what made you decide? I think Slamdance is still true that it has to be your first feature, right? In order
Yeah.
to, so
Yes.
obviously this was your first feature.
Hmm.
What made you decide, like, obviously you've written for a long time, you've directed, like, what made you decide at this moment in time, like, I'm going to write and direct this feature? And what made you do it, and how did you do it,
Um, I Up until Darla, I didn't really think I was going to direct anything. And then uh, after Eric and I finished the original Darla script, which was much more built out, it was a humongous budget, very different draft of this. Let's sprinkle in COVID there for a little bit, and then Eric goes away and basically reworks the movie and sends me about like 35, 40 pages of this whole like totally new script. And I couldn't put it down. It was fabulous. It was so good. And I was like, oh hell yeah. And so we just kind of like ended up rewriting it, not me not knowing that I think Eric was already thinking, we can do this. We can totally do this. And the reason it's attractive as a first feature is because this type of high concept kind of lends well sometimes to indie budgets, because otherwise you're relying on, well, let's just say less sexy log lines. So it's either going to be high concept and a little lo-fi, or it's going to be very talky and dramatic. Like the only one I can think of right now is Nomadland, which is unfortunate since that was like a huge budget movie probably, and had stars in it and things like that. But it's going to be that much more difficult, I think, to get even people to watch it because of that fact. It's just, that seems to be the reality. Winding back the clock, I did not know that at that time. And allowed myself very much to kind of like get seduced into thinking, yeah, I could direct. You know what I mean? Because it seems so small and manageable. And writing almost to that assignment, we kind of created the new version of it. And Eric also coming at this from some experience, definitely more than I had, which was zero. I felt kind of confident letting him take the lead as far as the pre-production and getting all of that started, and me just getting a crash course in all of that. And then you are already doing it, you know what I mean? And we didn't put a whole lot of thought into it at all. I guess that's not the answer you want to hear,
No,
but
actually, that totally jives. Like
yeah.
in some ways, you're saying like you did it because you didn't. It's like the audaciousness of youth, right? Like it's almost like you didn't know how hard it was going to be, and so you did it.
Mm,
And I feel the same way about art. Like I feel like that's true of a lot of things, right? It's like if you knew how hard things were going to be or were supposed to be or could possibly be, you would
we'll
never
never
do them in the first
start.
place. Yeah. So that's kind of awesome to just be like, and also the fact that you put in the work, you didn't start by like writing this with like, okay, what can I write that's low budget? That's one room
Mm.
that, you did the work to make the big version. And then there was another sort of almost adaptation, it sounds like, that
Yeah.
you like self-adapted and you did the work to do additional drafts and you still were in love with it, if not and more in love with it,
Yeah.
and were able to make something that obviously people love and was at Slamdance now. And like that whole process, it's so easy for us to focus on like quote unquote results, and results are important, right? Because it's like that
Yeah.
result is going to potentially help you make the next one. But also like the fact that you weren't worrying about distribution when you decided to make the film, and you went and made the
Yeah.
film, and the fact that that's true now is more important almost than what happens. I don't know. I just think it's really inspiring that at some point, it's not an easy thing to do, to make the
Right.
decision, but you do at some point have to make the decision, like we're going to make this film.
Yes.
And so the fact that you did that and now have this film is like something that it's so easy to kind of forget or ignore, but it's like that
Yeah.
should be championed.
The fact that it was a partnership and a collaboration very much helped me psychologically. I think it did the same for Eric. It's just like, because we're both of us new, and it's both of our first features. There is going to be more unknowns than knowns, but having it be a pairship where it's like we have inherent trust just implicitly, and that that gave me a lot of confidence. I mean, like this, we're bringing into it a lot of previous work that we've done together. So it's not like we had just met the year previous, and it's like, hey, maybe we should just make that. I would have probably felt differently. I also wonder if I would have never even considered directing pre-Darla. I don't really know. I probably like had very vague, like, oh yeah, this would be great if I could direct it, in a way that doesn't really like have consequences. And so I'm okay saying it. But having done it, I'm like now very much greedy for more. It was great. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, some really good points from Dom there. Um,
Yeah.
what do you have going on in the future, Susie? I know you guys are working on other things and
Hmm.
yeah, maybe you can speak to some of your future projects that you're working on with Eric.
We are still outlining our Viking ghost story. And it's not like we set out to necessarily write now let's try this genre and that genre, but um yeah, this is like it's different and harder in a new way because we've never written like a horror slash ghost psychological thriller together before. And even as I love watching them, I don't know where to drop the logic questions sometimes. And I'll tell you that like doing this with you guys has been so helpful to me, even in writing that Viking ghost story, because there are some things that the logic question never kind of comes up. So I love that about that. What is the bare minimum needed to get the story across? Um, previous to that, we did like an anthology, Clowns of the Orchestra, which I think Soul you read.
Yeah.
That one is again like a different genre. I think it's more of like your Altman ensemble cast, not one central story that you're tracking. Um, yeah, and just like wanting to get some of these made now in a way that feels different to like I think when so you and I were going to NYU and it felt like we were being taught this is your product and now you just take this product and forget you even made it and sell it on. And it's like I felt comfortable in that world, but now I think differently of things.
Um, that's a really strong point. I mean, I don't know. I think that you're such a unique writer, and you have such a special voice, that's interesting and like weird and like I think you're the main attraction. You like you as the writer and as the filmmaker.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, they people should want to work with you because again, you're such a talented writer. Um,
Oh,
and I
thank
think
you.
that's like, yeah, I think that's really the selling point for working with you and Eric is that you guys are such special filmmakers and talents. So I just feel like this is just the first step in a lot of really amazing things that'll happen for you guys. So I'm really excited. I'm really excited for you guys and
Thank
and,
you.
and excited to see what you have coming in the future, down the pipeline. Because I think you
Thanks.
guys are gonna
Oh,
make some
yeah.
awesome films, right? I mean, look at this review from Film Threat. They say that your film is LaPlante and Moon have created a vision of life that is just a touch off kilter and uncanny. And I thoroughly enjoyed every minute of it. It's a once in a lifetime sort of film that comes along and sits in your mind. It's great. I mean, that's it's true
Uh,
though. It's so interesting and so unique, your film. And your writing in general, like all of the things that I've read from you, they're so like specifically you. Anything else you want to say, Susie? I'm gonna edit this. I'll like chop it together. But is there anything else you'd
um,
like to say about your experience in general?
Yeah, the one thing I have so few regrets, but the one thing I would do differently is get organized in my thoughts about what festivals we're going to submit to. Um, know what they've selected in the past. I did
Mhm.
not. Um, much too late into the process, while we were already submitting to film festivals, we started a spreadsheet of like, what are the possible ones? We basically had a list of like I don't know, close to 100 more probably. And then from there, we started getting more granular about it. Who have they picked in the past, where have they ended up, but more so in order to get more yeses than nos out of film festivals, like this is work that I wish we had done. And that's something I'd like to pass on. Just study them, and at the end of it, as not disappointing, but like take it for what it's worth. It is a numbers game. If you want more yeses, you have to submit to more. I know it's more expensive, but that's the only way you're gonna open that up for yourself.